So good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on leveraging remote work, and delighted to introduce to you shortly our speaker. But first of all, would like to acknowledge Mirawan Gidjuan country from which this webinar comes today, and pay our respect to elders past, present and future, and our emerging leaders. So I'm very excited for our speaker today, and she's going to chat to us around ways that we can have staff to help us grow and build our businesses. And then at the end, we're going to introduce something that the club has got in the pipeline that Jo is involved in. And so that's something to look forward to at the end. So Jo is based in Singapore, and she tells me it's raining there today. So thank you, Jo, for joining us from Singapore. And she's an experienced startup founder and is the owner of Pointer Remote. And she's won a number of awards, including the AgriFuture Rural Women's Award. She was the national winner back in 2019. So over to you, Jo. And yeah, thanks for joining us and for sharing your knowledge and expertise with us.
No worries. Thank you for having me. I'm going to show you all the tips and tricks, like my beautiful background that I've got here that is literally hiding my bed, which is currently unmade as my parents are visiting at the moment, and I've been relegated to my bedroom for working and running workshops. So this is the joys of remote work, as we can all see. Thank you so much for coming. I'm really like stoked to be here, and it's been such a incredible opportunity to be hanging out with some of these amazing women that you guys have collected all across the Kimberley, and I'm really looking forward to meeting and working with more of you over the next forever, let's be honest. And it's quite funny because me being now based in Singapore, I'm actually geographically far closer to you all than I normally am. I'm moved here in July 2022 with my husband and my two girls from our farm near Wagga Wagga in southern New South Wales. So I would normally be dialing in from Wiradjuri country, and so I actually sort of have been asking around if there is sort of an acknowledgement of country and things in Singapore. And I get very interesting responses because this is a complete melting pot up here, and it's had some pretty interesting / traumatic history over the times as well. So not as such, but it's definitely really been a very interesting move for us. We've moved over here with my husband's job, but what I'm seeing is just the huge amounts of opportunity for business, Australian business, female-led business, businesses based in like remote areas of Australia, and then just the opportunity for Indigenous-led businesses in Southeast Asia is just enormous. So it's really great to be able to loop in with your amazing network and community of business owners. And I hope that whether you're watching this live with us today or if you're watching the recording later on, that even if you can get a couple of takeaways out of this, fingers crossed. And I'm also more than happy. I'll get the team to sort of include my contact details and things underneath the recording. So if you're ever watching this at a later date, I'm always more than happy to answer emails and catch up on phone calls if there's questions or things that you've got about anything in here if you weren't able to dial in live. So as I was so kindly introduced, I'm going to share my screen. Have you got a presentation now? Beautiful. Sorry, I'm looking on two screens. So if you're looking at the side of my head, apologies, but if you can only see the screen, fabulous. I own a company, as mentioned, called Pointer Remote. So I started this company in March 2017. After I realized I had a huge number of my friends had left corporate and professional careers when they had married farmers, and that they've left city areas and bigger towns and had moved out to more remote locations around the country, and that they weren't using the skills and experience that they'd gained in their careers because they couldn't actually access work that they were trained in or experienced in. And so that was the driving force behind me starting Pointer, which was the idea that companies, government, small businesses, sole traders that might have even been making their first hire, that they could access a talent pool of people with a whole variety of skills, that they could work in those organisations, but they could do it remotely from anywhere in Australia. So the premise was that geography shouldn't impact your ability to work, but it also shouldn't affect your ability as a business owner to attract the best people and the skills that you need into your business. And so what we're going to focus on today is the concept that doesn't matter that your business is being run from the Kimberley. Like, the fact that you're already doing it, it means that you're already leveraging technology, you're leveraging the internet, you are leveraging websites, software, the fact that you dial in to calls like this, or that you're watching a recording from 90 networks, like, you are already doing amazing things as far as being able to run a business from where you are. And you may feel like you haven't got a huge amount of tech skills or things, but the fact that you're already accessing this information, you're already well on your way to be able to get skills that you might not have yourself into your business. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm really good at talking. Will you be able to keep, how long have I got?
About 40 minutes.
Okay, great.
Just go.
Can you
for
keep,
it. Loving
okay,
it.
you keep me on track if I start going too. Also, to preface this, I am an ex-teacher. I am a primary school trained special needs teacher. And so I am all about audience participation, and also perfectly happy to be interrupted. It's far nicer being interrupted by savvy business women rather than teenage boys telling me to get off the bloody stage and assembly or sticking their finger up at me. So you guys are a far kinder crowd, but feel free to interrupt me if you have any questions. I also can't see the chat. So if anyone wants to watch, if you're wanting to put things into the chat and you want to read out questions, go for it.
Will do. Thank you.
Okie doke. Okay, so how to use remote workers to assist you to grow your business. So regardless of where you're at business-wise, you need skills. Hang on. I always get into trouble if I don't do this. My lawyer said that I have to put this on every presentation, particularly if it's being recorded. Blah, 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 blah. Don't make any dramatic changes without talking to professionals. Blah, blah, blah.
I love
it. It's in the recording. You can see it. And I'll share these slides as well, so you can have them afterwards as well. So you're in business. There's a good chance that it's just you at the moment. And it's a good chance that you probably rope in friends and family to sort of help you with ad hoc things or skills that they might have that you don't have. But what I really want to focus on today is, one, the fact that don't think that where you're physically located governs the only people that you can employ and engage with. I want you to also have a think about the fact that employing someone doesn't mean that you have to employ someone full-time on a full-time wage and pay their super and do all these things, which can quite often feel so overwhelming that you then don't do it because you're like, I can't even afford to pay myself, let alone putting someone on a full-time wage. So we're going to talk about the different ways that you can tap into the skills that you need for when you need them and for sometimes only a short period of time. We're really going to have a look at what you bring to your business already. So having a look at what your business's current skill set is. So the skills that you've already got yourself, the skills that you're willing to learn or that you're interested in learning, the skills of the family and friends that you can rope into and get them to do freebies for you, but also then having a look at what sort of those key skill requirements that you're needing to get it from poking along or you feeling like you're drowning, like waving, not drowning, having a look at what those requirements are that you need, how to find those skills, and then actually how do you get them into your business. So I say this onboarding for retention, because sometimes when you haven't actually got your house in order before you bring more people in, the wheels can fall off and it ends up actually being a disaster. And then you're like, remote work sucks. I'm never doing this again. I'm going to just suffer in silence for the rest of my business career because the one time that I did it and it was a flop, I'm never doing it again. So let's hopefully give you some strategies around that so that that doesn't happen, because accessing skills that you might not be able to access in your town is some of the most amazing ways to grow your business and really make it a financially stable and real thing for you and your family. So have a read through these and see if any of these actually sound familiar. So this is quite often the situation. And I say this, I am on to my 4th small business. Like I said, I'm a teacher. I started, my first business was a tutoring and school holiday program company that I ran in 4 towns across southern New South Wales. So I had 30 staff, 30 teachers working for me, and I was managing them remotely before I realized that managing people in different towns was actually a thing that you actually had to think about and put structures in place. I then had an event management company. Pointer is my 3rd company, and I'm in the process of actually starting another network of professional trailing spouses that are following sort of their expat partners around the world as well. So that's another project that I'm working on at the moment. But pretty much all of these stages down here, I've felt them at some stage, and quite often at all the same time. So if you're feeling busy all of the time, if you're feeling like you're not organized, if you're feeling like you don't have the skills that you need to do something in your business and that things keep falling over, or you can't seem to close a sale, or you just can't make that damn website do the pictures in the order that you want them to do because the drag and drop thing isn't working. If you've possibly done this before, that you've had staff and you were turning them over because you maybe didn't have the systems and processes in place that you needed to. And then if you're finding yourself here back at square one because you've sort of put someone on, it was a disaster, and then you're back hiring someone else again. I think this one can often happen when you're in a small town. I see this a lot in rural communities because and I should have prefaced this whole thing with is my attitude towards employing people into your business, pardon me, if you've got those skills in your town or your community, use them first. Always use them first. But then the second best thing to do is, if you haven't got them where you can physically connect in your local community, the next best thing is doing it remotely. And quite often what we've found is, because we've had a really strong focus on rural Australia, is that quite often when you put someone into your business that lives in another remote area, or they might be in your sort of your business niche or business community in a different area, the skills that they can bring because they understand small business in a remote area, or they understand business in your niche business area, they can bring just a plethora more skills and experience and stuff that can really drive some really good business growth for you. As I mentioned, the first sort of thing that I like to get people to do is actually have a look at what you've got already. And quite often that's actually doing some navel gazing and looking at yourself to be like, hang on, I can actually do a lot of this stuff. It's just because I'm running around like a headless chook trying to do all the things. I'm actually really quite good at this, this, and this. And if I got this, that, and that off my plate, I'd actually be able to do a lot better at doing the things here. So there's a really cool exercise that I like to do, and I can give you the really 2-minute version of it today. But it's this concept of getting yourself a wad of Post-its. And I am a very visual thing. Again, ex-teacher, I like the idea of doing something visual. Get yourself a thing of Post-its and find yourself a wall. And a good Sharpie. I feel like a Sharpie rather than a pen also makes this far more aesthetically pleasing. If you take the time and on each Post-it, write down things that have to happen on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis in your business. So, well, actually, let's use sorry, Hayley, you're going to have to, your mic's off, so you're going to be first victim. Tell me what does your business do? And then I'm going to pull your skills to pieces for my very quick demonstration.
I mean, do you mean in terms of what I do for mug makers?
100%. Well, no. So yes. So like something that, say, as part of your role, what are some of the things that you might do? So give me 3 of the tasks that you might do over the course of a week.
So I create social media posts, so content for the social media pages, interview someone for a podcast, or if I'm not interviewing them in that week, it'd be editing a podcast.
Okay, that's 3. No, that's perfect. That's 3.
Oh,
so
okay.
No, but like what I was sort of going to say then, if you were doing this, you could say, right, social media posts and scheduling. So that would be one of the things that would go onto a post-it. And then I would get you to drill down sort of even further into it and say, I'm assuming in a perfect world, you already have like a social media and marketing sort of plan or strategy of sorts. And it might be as basic as, I'm going to post 3 times a week. And that is something that needs to happen. So you can say social media posting and scheduling on the post-it. You know that you've got to do that 3 times a week, and it takes about 10 minutes to do each post. You know, you go into Canva, you create the post, you put it into your scheduling tool or whatever. And if this is all sounding a bit crazy, like, feel free to reach out and I can show you some of those things, Canva and a scheduling tool, if you haven't got your head around those. But so in theory, that should take 30 minutes. So if you write social media and things, scheduling, and 30 minutes on the post-it, stick it on the wall. Okay, a podcast interview. Does your podcast go for about half an hour itself, the call itself?
Roughly
an hour?
20 to 30 minutes if we can.
Okay, so realistically, you've got half an hour for the actual call. You might have talked to the person for 15 minutes before the call started. You'd spent 15 minutes in the lead up to, with a couple of emails back and forth to find a time that works. So you've spent an hour on that podcast recording, and you've set a goal that you're going to do that 4 interviews a month, so once a week. So if we've said, like, we're going to say, okay, this is what we're spending. We've already spent an hour on social media, half an hour on social media scheduling for the week. We're going to spend 1 of those 4 hours for the month in the week on the actual podcast thing. And then say editing was the next thing. Half an hour, do you think, by the time you've done the sound and slapped the video cover or whatever that might be?
Yeah, the editing time frame can vary because it depends on the, like, for example, I think there's a good example. We had one of our club members that I interviewed. Just our interview alone was 43 minutes. And so that's not in adding in the intro, not adding in our little sounds or our little like musical intro, musical outro to sort of wrap it. So, you know, Karen kind of took the hard yards there, and she was the one. Like, I started with the editing, and it was really hard because how do you, what information do you cut out of her long responses to make sense with when I jump in and ad lib to what she's saying? So that took us, Karen, I don't know, that probably took a week or more properly. You had to just have a break.
Yeah. I think,
yeah.
And that's very specialist, being able to, you know, niche it down like you did. And I mean, it sounds brilliant how it came out. But that's what I'm thinking in terms of our processes or systems that we might, and I don't want to jump in with what Joe's probably, you know, going to work towards, but that initial edit, we might look at outsourcing that, and then the specialist bit where you niche it down to the 20 minutes, or we make it into 2 lots of 20 minutes. But yeah, at the moment, I would say the editing's probably taking anywhere up to sort of 12 to 15 hours. But then, Joe, but then we leverage that for other content. But
So do you know what? This is actually, I'm really pleased that I asked, because this is a perfect example of something that can. So, okay, so let's keep with this theme. If you sort of think about, I'll just go back really quickly to this post-it idea, and then we're going to come back to the podcast. So this concept of you going through and pulling down, and it might feel a bit tedious at the start of like, oh gosh, like literally I've got to do this, but it's like including, so say if you are Natasha and you're doing chili jam, if you are you're going to have to include into the time taken is cleaning, sterilizing, purchasing the jars, label design and printing and attaching. Like if you think about all of those tasks, they all take time. And we wonder why we are running around like headless chooks, is because we think, oh, we're not even doing that much. But when you actually break down, like Hayley, you doing a podcast that takes 15 hours to edit, that becomes, you're like, why did I not get anything on my list done this week? Like, I feel like a manic, like all over the place, but you can see why. It's because the tasks that you're doing are taking a lot longer than you give them credit for. So this comes into that second part, is then if you put all of those post-its up on the wall, if it's just you, unfortunately, who has the skills to do this task at the moment? It's you, and they're all sitting with you. But if you've got some team members or people that are already maybe contracting in, or that you get for ad hoc work, you might move those. Everyone can then have their own post-it with their name on the wall, and you can sort of move those post-its in underneath. And it's almost actually creating a job description for that person, which can be quite helpful. But then this third thing here is when you look at that list of things that are all sitting under your name, if you start pulling off the post-its and creating another pile on the wall further across, you'll start to see these are the skills that are missing. And it might be podcast editing. I'm really great at interviewing, doing all the admin in the lead up to. I'm great at pulling little snippets out to put onto social media posts that I can schedule, that can go in our blog, that go on our website, all of those things. But that 15 hours of editing, I just don't have those skills to do that efficiently. And I can be spending my time generating revenue, making the money, doing the sales, doing the whatever that's actually going to drive your business forward and actually grow your business for you. You're far better doing that than you are spending 15 hours editing a thing that realistically, like a 45-minute thing, like you could have a contractor that only does that, turn that around in half an hour for you. So that is a perfect example of when we then, let me skip on to our next page. Oh, sorry, here, I made a pretty, this is your imaginary wall. I did this for you, but this sort of thing of breaking down how long you would spend doing those things is actually a really almost cathartic activity to go through. So it then comes to this concept here of auditing and redistributing the workload. And while that all sounds far more sophisticated than it actually is, it's how can I palm these post-its off onto someone else? And how can I even just use that process to start thinking like, okay, obviously, especially when you're right at the start, or if you're small, or if you're not actually making any money yet, it's really hard to justify paying someone else to do those things. And I have been there spending the 15 hours editing the video, and the audio, like I've been there, because you're like, well, it's all well and good outsourcing stuff, but I genuinely can't afford to do it. But this concept of actually looking for where would be the best spend that I can either justify borrowing some money, whether it's a bank loan, whether it's applying for a grant, whether it's like I'm going to squirrel away as much of the sales money as I can, and I'm going to bank it for a while, because I am going to, for 3 months, I'm going to pay someone 1 day a week to edit 15 months worth of audio that I've recorded, and they're going to edit it for me. Or I'm going to pay someone for 10 hours to do a social media plan for me, and I'm going to get them to go into my Canva account. I'm going to get them to create templates for my social media posts and say my newsletter template. So it just means that I can come back in, change the words, and then schedule it myself. And I'm not stuffing around in there thinking, oh, does this look good? Or does this match my brand? Or is this on point? Because I saved up my money and I paid someone to do that plan that actually is not just putting posts that I think might work. This is actually going with like a sales strategy. So the idea with a marketing plan is that you're going to create social media products, posts and things that will sell your product or service. So that can actually then, when you think, okay, I've spent $150 an hour for 3 hours for someone to do a marketing plan for me. So I've spent $450. Sorry, it's still early trying to do maths. I've spent $450 to get this marketing plan, but I know that those social media posts are over the next month going to make me $700 worth of sales because they've really clearly outlined the product. They've really explicitly got the social media following that I've built up they've got them to that point of sale that you can very quickly see, oh, I can see that the value that person with expertise has been able to create a product for me, i.e. the marketing plan and the templates and things that have been able to directly create this much of sales. You can then see, oh, okay, well, I'm going to then squirrel away the sales for the next week or the next month. And I'm then going to say, okay, I need to pay a bookkeeper to come in and just have a look at my accounts and maybe set me up on Xero, like an invoicing and like accounting software. And I'm going to spend however much money with them because they're going to help me automate my invoices and setting up the reminders so that when I make a sale, that it sends an invoice and it chases the person that hasn't paid it. And I don't have to have that weird, awkward conversation with the person who hasn't paid my invoice. You can then very quickly say, oh, look at that. Me paying that bookkeeper to set that up for me has meant that the 5 invoices I send a month are now actually all paid rather than 3. And then the 2 that I'm too embarrassed to chase myself because I don't want to have to ring them up, but I can set it up an automation that'll just keep harassing someone until they pay it. So those are some examples of some really easy ways that you can look at that list of post-it activities that you either don't have the skills to do, or to be honest, you really hate doing them. And there's no shaming that as well. Like there's some really rotten jobs that you've got to do in small business. Like if you can outsource stuff like that, like that's a really big win there. So I think that what this opportunity, when you actually look at doing the post-its as well, actually sort of auditing before you redistribute is a really good strategy. So is this thing that's on my post-it, is this task or the project, is it actually a priority? And could I possibly just stick that post-it on the wall near my desk and I'll get to that in 6 months, or I'll get to that when we've hit this much in sales, or I'll get to that later? If it's not a priority and it's not impacting your day-to-day things, maybe shelving it for a while can get some stuff off your plate that's going to make you feel less like a crazy person. If you've got people working for you, is the workload you've given them reasonable? And I don't want to put you guys in the put, but Hayley, you might be getting well and truly overworked, my friend. If you've got a list of things that need to happen every day, week, and month, and you're spending 15 hours editing a podcast, and then everyone's hounding you to get the other work done, and you find that you're doing it after hours because you can't actually get it done in the time that's allocated for you, that maybe this workload is not reasonable for your team members. And so that's something to really think about as you start growing with your headcount. Again, can team members swap tasks or a project? So you might find if there's, say, 2 of you in your business, you might say, okay, well, in theory, I'm the CEO, or in theory, I'm the salesperson, and the other person is the finance person. The finance person might actually really like doing social media. And so don't be too caught up in what people, like a job title or what you think people are doing, because quite often, this is the joys of small businesses. You can almost choose your own adventure, and you can create your own job description by, say, if there's 2 or 3 of you, you all look up at the post-its And you also to take it in terms of taking the jobs that you like, and you build your own job description out of it. And you might have someone that's like got a money background doing the social media and the newsletter, but they also send all the invoices and they chase the people that haven't paid. And you might have someone else who is like the front of the business and the sales, but they actually really love the admin and they love writing the newsletter, or they really love, sort of reconciling the expenses in a spreadsheet or something like that. So just don't get too caught up on who's doing what. Quite often your skills are already there. It's just that it might have not have been why you brought that person on in the first place. We sort of talked about this. Could it be reallocated to someone else? Or if you find yourself with a post-it, you're like, why am I even doing this? Like, why is this even taking my time? Like, this is serving no purpose. And this is a great one to like just pull off the wall and scrunch up the post and chuck it out, and just don't do that anymore.
There's an excellent 5 questions to address there. And I was thinking, like, with my, suite of my own businesses. So like I love like the creative side of me, like, like images, for example. And when I see an image that I like, or I'm on Pinterest or a photo or something, I think, gosh, that would go really well in a social media post. So one thing I've done is I have a folder and I just put all these images in it, and then the person who I've given my social media post to do, she can draw from that. So that whole idea of swapping a task or project, or I talk about it as like, you've got to find people's superpower, eh? You work 100%. To strengths. Yeah.
100%. And I think like I love admin, which sounds like super weird, but I love it. I love systems and processes. And I love that when a form comes through and it does this, I love like tech that automates things. And I love doing all of those things. And when I had a number of, all my team has always been remote. I've never had an office for any of my businesses. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. I had locations for the tutoring and the Learning Tree, my first business, but none of the sort of business operations happened there other than like the tutoring and the actual camps themselves. But my team, my Pointer Remote team, they all thought it was hilarious that I loved the admin. And so quite often the girls that in theory I had brought in, like an executive assistant and like a community manager, quite often I did the admin for both of them, and they would actually go and do client-facing meetings, or they would run a workshop online, which you would think in theory that should have been me being up front and center of the business doing it. But especially because they were a lot more creative and they were like, ugh, I hate doing admin. So it's great when the boss does your admin. That's like a dream job. This was something that I was thinking a lot about when I was pulling this presentation together, is that really asking yourself the question, are you ready to hire? And I think quite often what happens is that people don't think about putting someone on in your business until you are absolutely just swamped, and that you're just like, I can't function and I'm doing a horrible job at everything and I'm so busy. But I think what are some really important things to do, especially if you're at early stage of business now and you're not feeling out of control, start putting some things into place that are going to allow you to grow when it starts getting busy, because you will have put things in place already. When the sales come and when the clients come and when the travel comes and when the global export is happening, that you're actually ready to put people on, because you've got your house is in order, like I mentioned earlier. So something to have a think about is, do you have a business plan? And I was always like, business plan, that's what banks want, and like, boring. I really don't want to do that. And I'm a startup and I'm snazzy and I don't know what I'm doing, because whatever opportunities come, like, how can you plan for? And people would be like, okay, that's a really dumb way of thinking about it, Jo. And I'd be like, okay. But a business plan can be as basic as a one-pager. And have you guys done things around the lean startup? Okay, fabulous. So that
Yeah,
what's it
we've
called?
got some
The one
templates on our website. Like we've got a lean
what's it
canvas.
called
We've
again?
got
A
a
lean
one
canvas.
pager. We've got a 5-pager. Yeah.
Yep. A lean canvas is fab. The lean canvas is fab in that it is great for people with adult ADD like me who just like am not interested in doing things like planning. But a lean canvas is a really fabulous way of actually just getting some things out of your head onto paper to think, oh, hang on, like I'm actually setting some goals here and like I'm actually going to need some assistance in order to do that. So do you have, before you're getting someone into your business, do you actually have a clear idea of the tasks that you want to do? And while I've said the post-it idea is fabulous, when you hire someone, you can't just like send photos of the post-its and then say, here you go. I did this thing one time where I wrote the tasks on a post-it and I'm just going to send them to you and you just go forth and do them. Like it's going to end in disaster. So you being really clear on what you want someone to do, having quite often step-by-step instructions on how to do that. Oh, hang on, that is my next thing. Step-by-step instructions. And do you have a way of making sure that, especially if you're employing someone remotely, do you have a way to make sure that they're actually doing the work? So you're not just paying for someone's bum on a seat, even worse when you can't see them, that you're actually making sure that the work is outcomes based. So if there's no outcome, you know that the work hasn't been done. And that's a way to either like performance manage them out of your business, or it's a way to be able to crack the whip and say, come on, dude, like I can see here, this is your list of 3 things and you've done 1 of them this week and I've paid you your full tote here. So you need ways to be able to actually check and see, not like breathing down their necks and being like Big Brother, but for you to be able to say, you're paying money for someone to be in your business, especially at the early stage. Every dollar leaving your account into someone else's pocket is agony. Like I can remember it tearing out of my account. It just felt like it was taking my firstborn child when I was paying those invoices in those early years of all the businesses. So I can really sympathize. So you want to make sure you're getting your bang for your buck. So there is like 1,000 different ways to do all of these things. And like, I feel that I could literally run like an hour workshop on each of these things, but some things to sort of consider, some tools like Trello. We can put a link in there if you guys haven't come across Trello. It's another really interesting free tool that you can use to do your post-it activity. So if you don't want to stick post-its on the wall, you could actually do that activity in Trello. And the concept is it's a post-it session on steroids on your computer, pretty much.
Yeah, Hayley and Karen have become Trello queens because I'm the Trello. I don't know what you call me. What's above a queen? I'm the Trello queen.
The guru.
Trello
The
master.
guru.
Oh, guru. And yeah, Karen and Hayley are just smashing it now with Trello. And girls, how do you find that as a system for you? I don't mind if you answer negatively, by the way.
Say the guru is a pain in my neck.
Yeah. Maybe you, Karen. Because you've had a love-hate relationship with it.
There was a little bit of a hate relationship last year, but I think this year, once, like if you're organized and if you've got your priorities in the right space, then Trello is amazing.
Yeah.
Because it just refines those priorities into tasks.
Yeah.
And it enables you to see what, like, so I get to see what Hayley is doing, what her tasks are, and then we get to work on a lot of things together. So we get to support each other. And I think because you get the same old, you think your memory is amazing and you think you'll remember that for next week. Yeah, I don't need to write it down, when really that is not how it works.
Yeah.
So Trello is yeah, it's a whole lot of things actually. It allows us to keep track of our ladies really well.
Yeah. And it's such a good accountability tool because like we sort of had rules internally with Trello was around that every card was only ever allowed to have one person on it, because as soon as you've got more than one person with their picture on it, no one's got accountability for it. So there can be multiple people working on it, but there has to be someone that has ownership for the completion of that task or the driving of that task. So just having not only like the infrastructure to be able to communicate, but to have some communication rules around there. So what I'd actually be more than happy to share is the concept of a communication charter. So even just having a one-pager on how we do things here, and I'm more than happy to share mine, and you can put that in under this recording as well. And it's like exactly that. Every card in Trello can only have one person on it. Every card has to have a due date so that it is alerting someone at some stage that something still needs to be completed. You know, you can make those own rules up for yourself, but for this concept here of, do people have step-by-step instructions? Yeah, they do, because you've written the step-by-step instructions in there. Do you have some way of making sure they're like doing it? Well, yes, because they literally have to tick the box next to it. Like, it's a really fabulous way of doing things. Again, I've just put in Xero. I used that as an example earlier of a fabulous, I've used it for years, like your finance software, to do all your bits and pieces. Again, if you're going to be outsourcing someone to do the finance side of your business, your books or whatever that is, and again, it might be 2 hours a fortnight that you're paying a bookkeeper $35 an hour. So for $140 a month, someone sends every invoice for you. Someone chases those invoices. Someone makes sure all your bills are paid. Like, if that's something that the finances boggle your brain and that you're missing things, you're not paying bills on time, you're not getting paid yourself, that is a very, very low touch way to sort of tap into this remote work thing in the first place. And again, if you're needing to find a bookkeeper, the joys of, now you know me, let me know. And I've got like a whole jobs board full of bookkeepers that I can connect you in with. But a lot of the people that become a bookkeeper, they've quite often come from small business themselves. So they've run books for themselves for a long time. We have a lot of farmers on Pointer's platform that are bookkeepers because they've done their farming books forever, and they're like, well, actually, this is a piece of cake. I could take on more clients to do this. Or quite often we've got accountants that are like, you know what, I don't want to be an accountant anymore, but I can do this bookkeeping thing on my ear. I'm a registered tax agent, so I can do my clients' BAS for them. And they can just do it from wherever. They can do it part-time. They can do it with kids at home, like all of these sorts of things that you can get those really, sometimes really, really highly qualified people into your business, and you might only need them 2 hours a fortnight. So again, this is coming back to that whole concept of getting skills into your business doesn't need to be like this frightening, crazy thing. The third thing here is online business management software. While that all sounds a bit high-tech and things, I've used a variety of different things. I've actually just moved on to a new one that I'll send through the link and you can have a look at, that I think if you've got some people that are at early stage, or actually, do you know what, even if they're like, again, I've built businesses on budgets. I am the queen of having the free version of this and the free version of that, and then I use some free software that makes that tell that to do that and automates that. Like, I've been there, I've done that. And if you're feeling like you're in the thick of that at the moment, I'd be more than happy just to run another little one for you on this software that I've actually moved over to, which is fabulous. It has like I can run my newsletter through it. It schedules my social media posts. It also hosts the website. It has forms that people can complete. It connects to my calendar and people can book appointments. Like, it's this all-in-one thing. So I'll be able to, like, I can share that with you as well. I've touched on this a couple of times, is this concept of employees or contractors. Like I said, I think a lot of people balk on getting skills into their business because you think that in order to employ someone, you need to employ someone full-time who lives in your town, and you want them to be this magical unicorn that trots through the town with flowing rainbow hair with glitter coming off them. who can do all of these magical things in your business. So you think
That's what
okay.
Karen is. That's what Karen is for us in Marketer Makers. I just
I can't wait to see the like streams of glitter flying behind you, Karen, as you cruise down the main street. But I think quite often what we think is that like, okay, I'm going to spend all this money. I have to employ someone full time. But if I'm doing that and parting with my money, this bad boy is going to have to do everything that I want them to do. They're going to have to bookkeep. They're going to have to be amazing at social media. They're going to have to be able to write all of our copy on our website. They're going to have to be great at calling customers and making sales and doing all these things. And these unicorns are very few and far between. Karen, you are a rare breed that I'm very jealous that I didn't find you earlier in my business career to have absorbed your glitter into my business. But I think that this is the thing, is that if you can justify spending money on salary, if you're going to employ someone either full or part-time, or if you're wanting to engage contractors and you're parting with contractors or freelancers, you are better off trying to not find a unicorn. You're better off trying to find 3 different part-timers that will cost you the same amount of money, but they are far better at all doing this, like the jobs that they're good at. They are a specialist. Like I said, get your bookkeeper for 4 hours a month. Get your marketing manager who does 3 hours a week, and then get your, I don't know, your admin, someone that's just going to run your emails and answer emails for you. They might do an hour a day. And so I've lost track. I think that was 5 hours a week. So 20 hours a week for your 20 hours a month for your admin. You've got 4 hours a month for your bookkeeping and whatever the other one was that I said. That might work out that you've got the equivalent of someone working 2 days a week in your business. And when you think about it like that, you're like, I can actually justify that, because if they average out at say $50 an hour, or I need to make, God, I keep trying to make myself do maths on the spot, but whatever, you're working out that to cover the wages of someone or this group of people for 2 days a week, I need to sell this much product, or I need to run this many workshops, or I need to sign on this many things, or I need to sell one piece of artwork every 2 months to be able to justify that spend. When you can see it like that, this becomes a lot less frightening financially.
And you become more focused as well.
100%.
On
100%.
your product or your service, because there's a reason behind it, so I find it a bit of a driver, a bit of a motivator.
That's a really nice way of putting it. I've always found it like someone chasing me with a shotgun. That's how I've found it more, that there's wages that are needing paid.
That's
too
dramatic, Joe. Too dramatic.
You haven't picked up on that already, that I'm a very dramatic person, obviously.
No, not at all.
But again, it is that pressure. And again, you've got to know yourself with how much pressure that can be. I went too far at one stage. I had the equivalent of 2.5 full-time employees. So 2.5, 2.5 FTE. There was 2.5 people working for me that I had to pay wages. I had to pay super. They were employees. And 2 of those girls, it was their full-time job working for me. And the pressure that came with that for me was, in the end, actually too much for me. I found that I was taking on work and projects, and I was saying yes to things that I actually didn't want to do, that maybe hadn't aligned with my values personally or the business values. I was doing work that I didn't enjoy. I was traveling a lot. I was away from my family because I had this pressure of these wages, that I was the source of income into those girls' families. And that is something that you genuinely shouldn't take lightly, because it is a genuine thing that you need to think about. But on the flip side, don't be frightened by it. Do your numbers, work out what you need to do to justify the spend. But I think what the amazing thing about remote work is that you can dip your toe in the water by subbing out little bits for finite amounts of time. So you might say, I keep coming back to the bookkeeper, but that's like an easy one. Or actually, do you know what? Like the podcast editing, to bring it back to what we were talking about, you might say, okay, for 3 months, I am going to get a pro to do the editing. For 3 months, I'm going to see how much time that buys me. For Hayley, it's going to buy her about 15 hours a week. So she's like going to the day spa, getting a mani-pedi instead of like editing podcast interviews. And you say at the end of the 3 months, okay, my return on investment was enormous because while I wasn't editing podcasts, I sold 3 more paintings, or I shipped 3 more boxes of chili jam. I was able to do all these other things because I wasn't bogged down doing something that, 1, I hate, and 2, I'm not actually very good at, and 3, we've ended up with a far superior product at the end of it because I got a pro to do it. So, but at the end of the 3 months, if you say, oh, that was really great, and like, it was awesome, but I actually haven't been able to make enough money to justify spending it still, or I wasn't able to make enough savings to sort of justify it, you can cut it off because you went into that arrangement saying we're trying this out for 3 months. And I think this is, again, why it's such a fabulous way to test things out. This is an important thing. Like I said, another thing to consider, like I said, the pressure that comes with full-time employees is something that don't underestimate, but there's also this blurred line of, and my accountant said this to me one time, if they look like an employee and smell like an employee, then you need to employ them. So if you have got someone that does the same repeatable tasks for you 3 days a week, as a contractor, and they've been doing that for like 3 years, and you're paying them the same amount of money, they're doing the same sorts of things, there is a blurred line. And this is, again, where you actually need to talk to professionals. So accountants, HR people, whatever you've got, if they're not in this network, I can loop those sorts of people in, and they could be some interesting masterclasses if you haven't had those already. But you need to be careful, because if you have someone in a contract, it's like having someone casual forever. And for anyone that's ever had casual work, it sucks, because if you're casual for somewhere for like 20 years and they've never made you an employee, you're not earning holidays, you're not getting paid. Well, contractors aren't getting paid super because you're supposed to be putting that into your price. Like, it is unfair for the person who is working for you. So that's just something to consider. Again, I put my disclaimer at the start, so don't take what I'm saying as like gospel as far as how like your industrial relations laws and things work, but this is just something to consider. Finding the skills you need. How am I going time-wise?
Probably about another 5 to 8 minutes.
Okay. This is, I think, then another really, so having the systems and process in place to actually employ someone is really important. But when you're finding these skills that you need, you actually really need to have a look at yourself and do some navel gazing and think about how you are as a business owner. But you are going to be, as soon as you start engaging people, you are pushing yourself into a actually quite explicit leadership position. So you needing to have a look and say, like, are you actually flexible, or how flexible are you with how this relationship's going to work? Like, do you need that person at set hours? So say it might be someone that you have got, customer service 2 hours every day, and you've advertised on your website that you can talk to a human between 9 and 11, Monday to Friday. Then you engage someone who works for you, who is on the phone to answer customer service calls, then that isn't actually particularly flexible, because you need them to be there from 9 till 11. So that's fine. Be explicit with them. But if they thought they were signing on for 2 hours a day that they could do whenever they wanted, and they can arrange it around school pickup or their own business or whatever, those sorts of things, you need to be very clear and explicit how that job or that position or those tasks need to be. Sorry, was that a question there? No? Okay. I think this is also a really interesting thing to be considering Well, one, I feel like as part of your business planning and stuff, this is actually a really imperative thing to be having an idea is, are you clear on your business's vision and purpose? Like, what are you wanting this business to do? And what's the purpose of it? And that genuine thing, because when you employ someone, you want to be able to say that their values align with yours, that you can genuinely say, this is the vision that we're working towards. This is what we're trying to achieve. And I need your skills to join with me and with my business to be able to move forward. And so you need to be clear on what that vision and purpose is before you can then start saying, hey, fall in line with ours. So you've got to think, we're not sending them photos of Post-its for their job description, and we're not assuming they're just going to be able to pull out of your brain what you're actually aiming to do with your business. This is just some interesting things here that, are you articulating in the job description and when you're interviewing people, but are you also demonstrating your business vision and purpose on your website or in your store and in your office? Because you think about how you buy. I try and shop with purpose. I try and spend my money with businesses whose values and purpose align with mine. I try to do that. And if you're not articulating that on your website, or however you're showing your customers where you are, don't forget the people that are going to work for you are also going to look at that. And if it's not clear to them when they're like, if you've applied for a job before, you quite often will go and look at their website, or you go and look in their store, and you're like, okay, cool, I like their vibe. I can see that on their website, they're talking about the purpose and the reason that they're in business and the reason they're doing things. And in a shop, they might actually explicitly say, these are the core values of our business. This is why you should. And it could be like a dry cleaner that's like, our values are around like creating a reasonably priced product. We want to be as environmentally friendly with the chemicals that we use. We guarantee same-day service because we know people need things like that. If you see that they're very explicitly saying that, and you're someone in the morning that's pretty slow off the mark, and people are really annoying when, like, they drop their dry cleaning off and they want it back that afternoon, and you're like, geez, you're so demanding. Like, that doesn't really, like, I'm busy doing other things. Well, your values aren't aligning because the company you're working for is saying they have a same-day service, and you're like, oh, you're so annoying when you actually want that service completed. That's a really good way to actually get people that you don't want working in your business. If you're very explicit from the outside, they're not even going to apply. So you're not even going to get to the interview stage and say, they fudge their way through, and then they get into your business and you're like, oh, you suck. If you're doing some things up front, it's actually a really good way to sort of get rid of the people that you don't want working for you as well. This sort of segues into this. Are you selling yourself? Again, I look at, like, and some of the women that are in your group, I have been stalking you and looking at your websites and seeing how you present yourself. It is just so unreal. Like, I want to buy from you. I can see your stories. I can see that your vision and purpose is so apparent on your client facing and your customer facing platforms, whether it's your social media or your website. If I was then seeing that you were advertising a job, I would be able to come to that site and say, I want in. Like, this is exactly who I want to work for. I can see that she's passionate about this and that she's trying to do this. Those are the sorts of things. Like, make sure that you're selling yourself, not just your products, but selling yourself as an amazing place to work. And that's something to think about, especially if you're right at the start of your business. Those are the sorts of things, like I said earlier, start how you wish to proceed. Make sure you're selling. You will hire people eventually. If all of you are planning on growing these businesses to something that is sustaining you financially, supporting your family, it might be that you're actually banking cash to leave a partner that's actually pretty ordinary. I deal with a lot of businesses that have gone into business for a variety of reasons. And if you're genuine and you want to make money, which is not a dirty thing whatsoever, and I think that women are really bad at saying, I'm here to make money. Yes, I can do it with purpose. Yes, I can sell an amazing product, but I want to make money. I want to be independent of my spouse. I want to put my kids through school. I want to be able to do all of these things. Say it and make the money, because I think being able to get this comes back to the core thing. If getting the skills that you need or that you don't personally possess into your business, like in whatever capacity, whether it's remotely or in person, if they're all going to add to you making money, this is a good thing. You're making the money. You're paying that person to do the job. They're making the money. And then those people, you and that person, whether they're in your town or in another town, they're spending that money in other businesses. That whole web of people making money and spending money is good for everyone. This last point here, is everyone on the same page? This is a really good way to, whether you're choosing to employ people, but it's also a really good way of sacking people. Because if you've got really clear values, purpose, and things that you've included in the job description and included when you onboarded them and brought them into the business, if they're not doing it, then you sack them. Again, don't just sack people because you've got to take advice on that, but you know what I mean? Like if you do all the things properly, you've got the grounds to work from when people's values and they're not aligning with the things that you're wanting to do. I've sort of talked about this very briefly, but this concept of attracting people into your business and then holding on to them, so hiring and then retaining them, this starts before their first day. So once you've hired someone or you're engaged a contractor, there's lots of different ways that you can sort of almost do an introduction into your business. And it might even be that you record a selfie video on your phone and you text it to them. And it might be like, I'm Joe. I'm so pleased to have you joining our business, doing my books for 4 hours a month. This is, you might talk them through in the video. These are really my core values. If you've got a factory or a work shed or something where, I'm having a mind blank, wherever you do art.
Art studio.
My God, that's what I'm trying to say. A studio. You might take them on a tour of the studio, and this is where you might come once a month if you live in a relatively nearby way, or when I'm dialing into meetings, this is where I'm going to be sitting, just doing something that's introducing them. There's a whole lot of cool things that you could do. Like there's a software called Thinkific that is a really, you could have up to 3 courses on their free plan. And you might actually, it's like doing an e-learning course that you could actually set up a course that's like, okay, these are the things that I need for you to come into my business. Like here, download your, whatever that form is that you've got to give to the ATO, your tax file number declaration form. Here's a link to it. The next lesson in the thing is watch the video of our safety procedures for using this machinery that we use to pull the canvases onto a frame or something in my studio. You can have all these step-by-step things, and even before the person started, you can send them a link to do this free course, which is just onboarding them into your business. But also, you need to plan what that first day, week, month, or year, it doesn't need to be down to the minutes, but you need to have an idea of what it looks like from that honeymoon period, which can be really fabulous because you're like, oh my God, I finally got all of this stuff off my plate. Or it can be really manic while you're onboarding someone because you're trying to do all the things at the same time, teaching them to do the things that will soon be off your plate. But you having an idea what it looks like for them in those first months initially is going to have a much better result as holding on to them, because they're going to know you've planned for them. They know you've got ready. They feel like they've got all of the resources and access to things they need to be able to do their job. Because again, you've hired someone whose values align with you. They don't want to be just taking your money and not being able to do the work. But if you haven't got organized and said, this is what I want you to do on your first day, and it's sitting in Trello or it's sitting in a notebook that you posted to them the week before, it doesn't matter if you're still paper-based with doing this. However it looks, you need to be able to give them every opportunity to impress you. And if you're not organized, it will look like they aren't doing a good job, and they will feel like they're not doing a good job because they haven't got access to all the things they need to be able to perform for you. Okay, I'm nearly at the end. these are some things that I want you to sort of, these can be some takeaways, your action items to start having a bit of a think about, which is your post-it session. So auditing the skills that you've already got in your business. And you might actually find that when you do some navel gazing, you're like, actually, I've got the skills to do these things. I just actually need to get more organized. I need to put some boundaries in place. I need to put, like I said, that business management software, I need to actually put that in place because I could actually do these things without hiring someone. So then you're having a look at that list to say, what are the skills that I need? And then maybe prioritizing them. What can I afford at the moment? What would be the biggest bang for buck? Having a look at those, and that might be where you hire next. Spend time selling your organization in your job description. And so if you've decided, okay, I'm bringing that person on, I think this selling your organization is not just in the job description. It's like I talked about, it's making sure that your website and your social media and your newsletter all reflect what your values are, and that's going to then be able to demonstrate to the person that you're going to put on. Create or update a really solid onboarding system. So again, that might be your e-course. It might be that if you're using Google Workspace for your email and those sorts of things, you can create a Google site, which is a website that you can actually hide from the rest of the world, that you can set up almost like a little intranet, which has got literally all your lists of how to do all the things. And again, that's something I can show you how to do as well. It's like a really nifty little way of doing things. That's what I've literally used behind the scenes for my businesses as well. Let me see if there's anything else on here. Nope, that is the end of it.
Thank you, Jo. Boy, I took a couple of pages of notes. I really just love how practical the session has been, and yeah, I just think it's such an amazing strategy to even think about, soon after beginning the business. Like you don't necessarily have to say, oh, well, I'll wait for 1 or 2 years till I get someone, etc. It's literally making a start. And I guess balanced alongside that is also, we find with a lot of us as business owners, like we are control freaks. We like things done a certain way. And we think, oh, it's just less stressful if I do it myself. But I have found, like I've used, various contractors over the years in my business, and I find that each time I step out to do it, it really sharpens things. It sharpens your processes. It sharpens your branding, or how you might present yourself or tell others about your business, because you're talking to a complete stranger that doesn't know you, and then they say, oh, I see that you say that's your vision of your business, but how does that match with? And but I remember stepping out with just, a couple of hours a week, and then you take it from there. So thank you so much.
Oh, that's all right. I was just sort of thinking though that going back to that, especially the early stage people, using something like Trello, do you know what? I'll send you a recording of this activity because I've got this that I've done before. But this concept of using a Trello board, and again, it can be Post-its, it can be a notebook, it can be whatever. But if you use a to-do list, which you should on a daily basis, to make, like, not everyone is Karen the unicorn that can remember all of the things. Like you need to you need to be able to somehow use a to-do list. But if you start thinking about, again, think how you wish to proceed. And if you think about, if you were a big business, so if you were a corporate would have a CEO, so a chief executive officer. They would have a CMO, the chief marketing officer. They would have maybe a chief technical officer. They would have someone in HR. They would have a CFO, so a chief financial officer. So even just those 5 things, say, to think, so your overall overarching, your strategy and things, your admin, your whatever. If you set up your to-do list in Trello and you make boards, or again, this could be just a list in your notebook, if you give those job titles to the things that you do in your list, and I've found that the things that are, what you can find is that you might find that you're doing lots of tasks that sit under the the CFO, so the chief financial officer's thing. So it might be like the BAS, the invoicing, the reconciling, the whatever. And you might see that actually the HR list is relatively small. When it comes to making that first hire, that actually could be a really good way. One, you've already sort of been building the tasks and creating that job description, but especially if you go that bit further and put the time it takes to do those things, you might say, do you know what? That's going to be my first hire because it's the list that's the longest. Or actually, this list isn't that long, but I hate that stuff. That's going to be my first hire. So just even how you do your day-to-day things. Okay, I'm doing this and I do all of the jobs because I'm a sole business owner. I'm the CEO, but I'm also the cleaner. I'm also the bookkeeper. I'm all of these things. But if I treat myself like this is going to be a big business where I would have a big team, that can actually really help. And again, I'll send another link, but it can actually help with how you're planning your week as well. So that quite often that list stays really long is because you hate it and it's not, you're not very good at doing it. But if you put it into your calendar, like at 11 o'clock on Thursdays, I'm just going to spend 2 hours working on the things in that list. I know I hate it, but I've got to do it because it's part of business. Like that's also another really good strategy for managing your time and stuff as well. So remind me that I can send you those 2 little activities. I've got them recorded that you can put those videos in with this as well.
Thank you, Jo. It's just been incredible, and we'll start to wrap up. And Hayley or Karen or Philly, who are online now, in a moment, I'm just going to ask you to come back with one takeaway from today. But also know, Jo, that and Karen's messaged me to say that there's a lot of club members that have given their apologies. They really wanted to join today, so I know they're going to really look forward to the recording because we've had lots of conversations with the women about, you know, taking the opportunity to look at ways that they can spread out the growth that's happening in their business. So what we want to just bring up now is an exciting initiative that we're working on in the club, and Jo's very much part of that. But we're looking at taking a group of women, anywhere between 6 to 10 women, to Singapore in October. We hope in October for a business development tour where you'll get an opportunity to share about your business, to learn some principles around being export ready. And Jo, we've asked you to be the project lead on this. So we're just at the moment, exploring some funding options and an itinerary. But Jo, I just wondered if you could take 30 seconds, a minute, to just give us a bit of a teaser of some of the things that you've got on the go there. And I guess in particular, I was thinking about how you have found that there is interest in people wanting to know about Kimberley Indigenous women and their businesses.
100%. So since we have started sort of discussions around this concept of a trip over to sort of explore what export into Southeast Asia and then onto global export looks like, is well, again, like I said, I've moved here from a farm where I have to like physically drive to have social contact with anyone, whereas now I live in a city that I can like not help but like crash into people and conveniently, strategically put myself in their way to talk to people. But whenever I have been bringing up the concept of bringing a group of Indigenous entrepreneurs that are living in northern Western Australia to Singapore to explore pathways to markets and export opportunities, people are falling over themselves because it's just not something that happens very regularly here, and they see the value in the products and the services that you creating and building and developing and selling, that people are just like more than willing to help. So, for example, I had breakfast with the High Commissioner from like the Australian government who lives here in Singapore, who was like, I love this. We would love to host an event at the High Commission where all of the women can come and we can get decision makers in the room for different sort of export opportunities. I've been working with the general manager of the Australian Chamber of Commerce in Singapore, which is called AusCham for short. She sees huge opportunities not only to be able to introduce the women that come to potential customers, but also she sees huge value in the educating side of things and the opportunities and networks that you can provide for businesses in Singapore who are not looped in with what working with Indigenous business owners are like. They're not up to date with how to do it. They are preconceived notions and biases and all of these sorts of things, and there's a huge opportunity she sees of getting these businesses in the same room as these new businesses, and that the learning is very much going to be two ways. I've had one of my friends that I've met through my kids' school. She runs this amazing gym in Singapore that is a cognitive gym, so that while you're at the gym working out, you're doing different sorts of exercises, like throwing a basketball into a hoop on a moving floor thing. She's like, come and have a session. The girls can come and have a session. The idea of having learning lunches. We've got a plethora of people that have volunteered to do sessions with the group, from a GP around sort of talking about sort of managing your self-care and things while you're in business and what that looks like, through to access to capital. So with Austrade, they're really interested in running a session where, like, actually looking at what the Australian government can do and help with those pathways to market. There's a plethora of people. I'm meeting with people every week that are looking at different ways to help, and some that would extend beyond the trip as well. So I've been talking with an art director who works every year to bring Indigenous artists over to Singapore as part of Art Week here, but also with a number of galleries who would be super interested in hosting exhibitions and have event spaces attached to their galleries to be able to do different things. So like I said, there is so much opportunity and a real appetite for the things that you're already doing. And there is a huge amount of resources and assistance that is available to sort of help, even if you're not really ready to go, but to get you ready. And very much that it won't just be those that go on the trip that get to benefit from this. There's a lot of opportunity in the lead up to, post doing it. I've actually been trying to track down some funding of what it would be look like to have a filmmaker or a documentary maker come along on the trip to actually film the whole thing, and to be able to create a resource that can be used by other members of the group, but also other like female Indigenous led businesses across the country as well. Because the more I'm talking to other women around the country, there's a real appetite for them to want to work with you as well. So on a Australia basis as well. So I get like super excited. It's so cool because like everyone's really excited at the concept of you guys coming over.
It's excellent. So good. And so what we're going to do is put out an expression of interest form, and so you're welcome to put your details into that, and we'll keep you up to date. And probably in about another month or so I'll do a separate session with Joe, and we'll start to give you some more specifics. So Karen or maybe Hayley, do you just want to kick off from just one takeaway from today while we finish up?
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Joe. This was very informative. So I definitely learned a lot. So trying to pick one thing is going to be a bit hard.
Oh, well, I guess you're going to be outsourcing the editing of podcasts, just saying.
Oh, yes. I mean, definitely that. I mean, even on that, it was funny because I mentioned, that one podcast took much longer, whereas the one I just did, like I literally did an interview yesterday and then edited it last night, and it was the quickest one that I've done. So like
Because your
some
skills are improving, so that your skills are
or it's
improving as
like,
well.
I think it's getting better with the actual interview process, making sure that we're happy
Yep.
with how it's gone and just not having any fumbles. The connection is good. Yeah, so I think the actual interview itself is getting better. So then it's like, I don't have to edit. I just edit the beginning, add in my intro and outro, and it's done. So
good.
yeah, but I think that was a good tip, is to look at even with swapping tasks, because Karen and I do that. Like I did start editing one and then I couldn't finish that one, so she took that over. So if there is tasks that are more of a priority, and if another staff member can, you know, assist in taking on, like, not that none of the tasks are a priority, but in terms of timing, if one needs to be done before another, we can then swap those roles. But even when you mentioned the bookkeeping stuff, like, just if you don't have a skill, you can just pay someone, and it might only be 2 hours a week or whatever it is. So I just thought of my mum's business, because she's a club member with us as well, and I was thinking about just us navigating her business and looking at it like, oh yeah, if we lack a particular skill, we can always pay someone to manage that for us, and it's not as a big deal as what I think we thought. So that was a strong takeaway for me.
Awesome. Thank you,
Awesome.
Hayley. Philly, would you like to add a takeaway? I'm not sure if you're able to yarn or if you're in the middle of something else.
Yeah, look, sorry I didn't have a camera, but
That's
it's
okay.
been good looking at all of you guys. I just yeah, for me, obviously very interesting. And yeah, very interesting. I think it's very exciting. And you know, just to know that, you know, the opportunity for Indigenous women or Aboriginal women in business is not only within Australia, like, you know, to know that there is those, you know, global opportunities, Singapore, and just hearing Joe as, yeah, just yeah, again, like Hayley, there was a lot of information. It was, yeah, I found it very interesting to know that, you know, it's just I think what's being achieved in, you know, in the space with, you know, Kimberly Gigas and this Magala makers, is, you know, it's just a small thing, I think, of what we, you know, and the opportunity. I think exciting for the, you know, the opportunity for the women to be a part of the October trip. I think for whoever gets chosen, I think it'll be fantastic. But yeah, I learned a lot from it, and it's, yeah, just sort of given me a bit of a boost again, because I sort of had, you know, have had times when it's just been really slowed down for me. So just having Karen and obviously Marie, it's been you know, good to have touch base with them, Marie locally, and then Karen through there, and Hayley as a young and inspiring leader in her own space. So yeah, it's just been good to be a part of this the Lincoln. So thanks, Karen, for arranging that and getting it through, and looking forward to, you know, how things progress from here.
Cool. Thank you, Philly. And Miss Unicorn,
Yeah,
Karen?
okay. Yes, past the unicorn, yes. So I don't know. You know what's amazing for me in this session is that we're actually practicing what's being preached. So and Joe, your vibe is very much like Marie, so it's very motivating. It's that real motivating kind of inspired type vibe, and I love it. And I think just to reconfirm that we're on the right track ourselves, because the thing you pretty much mentioned today is what we're doing, and building on that little bit of it at a time. There was a Marie, and then Marie bought me, and then we bought Hayley, and we're actually working that process, and it's just working perfectly well for us. And so I think just to reconfirm that my own business actually launches on Friday. And thank you.
Yeah.
And even that too, and although I'd love to say I'm an Indigenous woman from the Kimberleys, I'm an Indigenous woman from New Zealand. But I think just knowing that we're on the right course and the right path is awesome. It's just awesome, and finding our own niches. That's one thing I picked up from you today, is that we all have our own niche and where we shine, and making sure to stay in that space and not assume that because someone knows finance, that's not the only skill they have.
Mm.
That's actually just happened to us with my own business last night, where we have a person who was that, and then she took some amazing photos and showed us last night. We're like, what the heck?
Mm.
We didn't know that. Then she said, oh, it's a hobby, but I just never thought I was good at it. And she blew us all out of the water. So
Yeah, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
exhibit A, isn't it? That we're all humans as well, and that you enjoy doing things outside of work, like that. Of course, you're picking up skills that are transferable into your job, and even if it doesn't sit under your job description, it's silly not to leverage that. That poor thing is going to be taking photos for the rest of her time with you now, isn't she?
yes. But thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much again, Joe. We're going to be seeing more of you and hearing more of you. And yeah, thank you for just everything you've done today. It's been amazing.
No worries.
All right. Catch you, everyone. See you.
See you
Bye-bye.
in Singapore.
Yeah.
Bye.